This season on the art and science of complex sales, we're thrilled to present Tales from the Front Lines, a season developed for the leaders shaping the future of complex sales. We're bringing you straight into the action with the C-suite, VPs of sales, sales development experts, and top-performing sales execs who are redefining success in the B2B world. These are the trailblazers that are tackling tough sales cycles, coaching sales champions, and aligning teams to deliver exceptional results. So join us as we unpack the hard lessons, the breakthrough moments, and the invaluable insights from the best in the business. It's more than a podcast, it's a guide to growing revenue with confidence. So let's get started. Let's go. Today we have an incredible episode lined up for you. Not one, but two amazing guests are joining me on the show and bringing a wealth of experience from the sales trenches. And what's even better, I'll just say OHIO. I'm thrilled to welcome Nicole and Babel and David Mullins. Both are high-performance sales coaches with SalesStar and have decades of sales and leadership experience between them. They're here to share their unique perspectives on what's going on in today's sales world and how to thrive and simplify the craziness of the marketplace. So from identifying proper targets to navigating decision cycles to the continual definition and honing of focus, this conversation is packed with actionable insights. So if you're looking to improve your targeting, building a disciplined approach, or just staying ahead of the curve, you don't want to miss this one. Let's dive in. All right. Everybody, welcome to the show. And I'm pumped today. I don't have just one person out there on the front lines. I have two amazing people that just happen to be residents at least most of the year in my home state of Ohio. So Nicole and David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Glad to be with you.
Well, I'm glad to have you. And I need to ask you really quick, Nicole, I'll start with you, but both of you, if you could just, for the audience's sake, take a second, introduce yourself, what you're getting into now, and a little bit about your history in sales.
Sure, absolutely. My name's Nicole Babel. I'm a high-performance sales coach and consultant here for SalesStar. I work with clients that are primarily in the architectural, engineering, and contract furniture space, as well as some clients in manufacturing. Prior to coming to SalesStar, I had a 20-plus year career leading sales teams and being a salesperson myself. Primarily, the teams that I worked with were new business development. So lots of folks super hungry to get out there and find those new accounts and bring them on. So that's primarily my background.
Well, we're going to have to dive into a whole lot about what's changed with the new business development in this show today, because that's been a big theme, I think, everybody I've talked to in this series.
Yeah, absolutely.
So David, how about yourself, man?
Yeah, also with Nicole, glad to be a teammate with Nicole here in SalesStar. I have been in sales probably about the similar as Nicole, probably 25, 30 years almost now in a variety of different roles, but spent most of that time in the financial services sector and developing a team of salespeople. And while I enjoyed being on the front lines, I enjoyed even more developing my team of and really coaching and managing a group of producers in my insurance agency. And I've been coaching with SalesStar now for Nicole, we're going on close to 4 years. I think I've got a month on her. So I started right before she did, and we've been doing this together and really love having the opportunity to work with our clients and helping them grow their top line.
Well, I think you both have a pretty unique perspective in this, because I know you coach a lot of organizations across the board, and you both do it in different types of industries, but you're also out there. One of the things I like about the SalesStar, you are also out there, you can be selling your own clients as well. So you're also out on the front lines in terms of selling. So let's dive in and just from your perspective, what are some of the things that are happening today? I mean, we're recording this in December 2024 that are happening today that are different than what you've seen in your long sales career. So let's start with what's different. We'll go to a little bit to what's staying the same, but what are some of the shifts that you're seeing? David, why don't we start with you?
I think one of the things that when you asked me that question earlier, I was thinking that the biggest change. I think I'm seeing an acceleration in decision making, it's a change because I had previously for the last period of time, maybe 18 months or so, been a much slower sales process, sales cycle. And I'm telling you, over the last 2 months, maybe I've seen a significant acceleration in people wanting to invest in their businesses, people making really quality business decisions. So it's been a lot of fun. It's made my calendar really full. My sales activity is a lot of fun because people are looking to make some good decisions.
Somebody is agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Perfect timing to the dog.
What about yourself, Nicole?
Well, I definitely agree with what Dave said. Maybe an election had a little something to do with that. But something that I'm seeing that's changing in the marketplace is I'm really seeing people make more of an emphasis on really specializing, right? And really trying to understand the niche, their vertical market, so to speak, and spending less time taking a shotgun approach and really trying to be a master of all sectors. And really understanding that unless you're in a very transactional sale where you can touch a whole lot of people really, really quickly, like I'm thinking back to my days back in office supply sales, right? When you can see a lot of people and you can be expected to make a lot of sales in a given week. If you have a more complex sale, a longer sales cycle, it really behooves you to be an expert, perhaps, in a vertical or two, and really focus your time and effort on understanding where those decision makers and influencers are for a specific industry. And then aiming all of your attention and effort at getting in front of those audiences in a wide variety of ways, right? Whether that's when we talk about what things have stayed the same, whether that's cold calling, which is still a thing, people use the phone, it's your friend. But also we have lots of other ways to be relevant in front of our audience, like podcasting, which didn't exist several years ago, right? And, there's plenty of ways to get involved in the communities that we're looking to serve with our products and services. So just being creative and getting out there in a very well-defined niche, I think is something that's changed and accelerated over the last, call it 5 years.
No, that's a great perspective. And one of the things you mentioned there that I'd like to dive into a little bit, I'm wondering if you see it across the front lines. There has been a shift of marketing necessarily taking over all of those things like the podcasting or the social posting or the social, and that type of stuff, and that being more of a marketing function directly into the hands of a highly niche focused salesperson, really highly competent. Are you seeing that there's a necessity for that salesperson to understand more channels across the industries that you're working with, or are the industries, it's essentially a distribution channel is what it is, right? It's a strategy and channel to reach your ICP. But do you find that more necessary for salespeople themselves to have a better understanding and impact around those channels and creating content in those things? Or are you seeing organizations still relying on marketing for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think marketing has a role to play, absolutely, because as salespeople, we only have so much bandwidth. We don't have maybe the time to spend on tons of content creation, but I do feel like there is a buffet of options available to the modern seller. And that really what you need to do is analyze, what are you drawn to? Because people are going to do things that they enjoy. Are you drawn to networking and speaking engagements? If so, go find those and make that your plan. Are you somebody who loves social media and is going to be proactive and competent on LinkedIn? Great, do it that way. Are you somebody who still likes to make that phone call, right, to the right people? It doesn't matter, and you probably need to dabble maybe in a thing or two, but it's really all about cultivating your community. And whether that's an online community of people on LinkedIn, whether it's people who are coming in and listening to your podcast, or if it's just a really well curated, well qualified, targeted list of accounts that you're going after, I don't think it matters. I just think that you need to have a strategy and you need to have a niche and you need to figure out what are the behaviors and activities that you need to do regularly that are going to get you in front of the people that you need to get in front of.
Hey, David, I'm going to take this to you. And Nicoel, that's great perspective, but I'm going to take this to you, because for sales leaders, I'm sure you've seen that ability to be good at different things and focus on different things to actually almost be a challenge for sales leaders and for salespeople. Because as Nicoel was saying, you need to have a targeted focus and then execute relentlessly on that, or you're going to do a lot of things kind of half-assed. So 2 things. Number 1, as a sales leader, how do you take that in and actually set correct metrics around what it means to be good at a role, right? When there are different ways to communicate and people perform it differently, when it used to be much more prescriptive, much more you have to do these 5 things or these, go back to phone calls. You have to make 100 phone calls a day, right? Well, sometimes that doesn't work. So how do you start to measure KPIs, metrics, and those type of things when there is a diverse way of communicating with people?
I think that is a really, really great question. Thinking about sales leaders having that impact on their team, it's never a cookie cutter approach anymore, right? And we're not just going to say across the board. Like you said, everybody does this and we win. History tells us if we make enough calls, there certainly is a sense that the more leading activity, then the more is going to come out the other end of the pipeline, right? We know that. It's still an activity event. We've got to keep up the right kind of activity. But as a good sales leader, as I am having those quality one-on-one coaching conversations with each of my individuals, each of my sales team, and we're finding out, like Nicoel said, what are they really good at and what do they like doing? If they don't have that desire and that drive, we're just not going to see the impact of the other kind of activities that maybe they're not enjoying as much. There are so many ways to generate leads. So find out what is it that they love to do and create metrics around that. How many speaking events should we be at? How many leads are we driving and activities are coming out of each of those events? So in many ways, it hasn't changed. It's still knowing what we need to do and reverse engineer the end result to the activity. But it can be very unique for each salesperson, knowing what their passions and their skills are and how they can be most effective.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, Nicoel, if you agree with this. I've boiled it down to one specific thing that I love, which is a productive conversation. Right. And you can start to define that. You can define that in a million different ways, but I define it as it has moved our relationship forward towards an eventual ability to help them. Right.
Yeah.
And so when I start measuring those type of things and the great reps want to be talking with people all the time and having those productive conversations, right? It's just how are you seeing reps on the ground today actually getting those? Like what are some of the tactics that you're finding people using that they're having success getting those productive conversations and moving the ball down the field? And is it taking more effort or less effort these days to get them?
Good question. I mean, I think it's harder. It's a noisier world, right? So it's harder to gain people's attention. So what might have taken, I still remember my first sales job. I know my numbers from back then, right? So I know that I would make 10 phone calls and I would catch 4 people and I would make 2 appointments. So I knew I needed to have 8 appointments a week. So that told me exactly how many phone calls I need to make. I have a sense if we're not warming up some of these calls and we don't have access to things like cell phones, that number these days is closer to 15 or 16 attempts to get somebody on the phone. So it's going to take more effort potentially, which is why I see a lot of clients moving to supplementing really the targeted list and the dials with a really good referral strategy. How are we driving referrals through people who can influence a deal, whether that's an existing client or centers of influence in the markets that we work with. I work for ADP. They had folks whose only job was to focus on CPAs because those were the people that can hand you over deals, right? My contract furniture clients, they love working with A&D and real estate because those are people who know about deals that are coming in and can hand them a deal. Here at SalesStar, we do a lot of speaking because we know when we speak to the right audience with a topic that's likely going to resonate, if there's 50 people in attendance, there's probably going to be about 20 or 30 who are going to raise their hand and go, yeah, that sounds like a problem I have. And out of that, we're going to get a certain number of new clients. So it really just depends, I think, on the industry that you're in and how can you get closer to those people who are in a position to tell you yes, not wasting your time with people who can only tell you no. I mean, it hasn't really changed in that sense. Again, it's just how creative can we be and strategic can we be about how to put ourselves in the room with the right people that are going to hear our message, hear the problems that we solve, right? Because that's what it's about. Nobody cares about what you sell or your widget or whatever it is. They don't really care. They care about their issues and whether or not you could potentially help them solve those.
Yeah, David, I saw you itching there too to bring some commentary there.
Yeah, Nicole brought us some really important things. Earlier you mentioned, Nicole, the importance of having clear definition around that target market or the ideal client profile. If I really want to get to the point where I'm having these productive conversations, Paul, then we can boil it down probably into 3 key steps. If I really know my ideal client, and then my next question then has to be, what are the problems I'm solving for that client? What are the headaches that they have? Why are they going to listen to me? It's because they have a headache that I might have a pill for, right? And so if I know my client, my potential client, and I know what I can do for them, then step 3 is how do I build that into a message that's going to get their attention? It is so noisy, like Nicole said, by far more than when I started selling. When I was selling insurance, I would literally just walk into a business owner's door and ask for him. And half the time I could walk into his office and start talking to him about the benefits of having a robust employee benefit plan and why that mattered. And we could get that appointment scheduled. It does not work like that anymore. There is too much noise. And so we've got to have clarity on the market, clarity on what we're going to do for that market, and then build a message that they're going to listen to so I can get to that productive conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting where you started this conversation, Nicole, was on that you see more clients niching down to more spaces. And I think that's so incredibly important. And there's things that stay the same. I think that's always been really important. But things that are changing is there's so many more potential clients. There's so much more noise about it, with so many more salespeople that are not niching down and selling randomly that create a bunch of noise. Now just put on steroids with AI is that I think it's so important as well to add. And you also mentioned that place. Where's the place that you're going to have a handshake or the place that you're going to have that productive conversation? I think that's, and setting yourself up and your reps up for success is looking at that and really defining where individuals live. Because it used to be, well, at least when I started in the game, right? It's okay. You're going to focus on CEOs. Yeah. You're going to try and go everywhere you can to find that CEO. And by the way, you have to make 100 calls a week, hold 5 appointments a week and do this, right? That's what you have to do. So pick up the phone and make it happen, right? Here's your list of CEOs, call them. Now it's your list of CEOs in a targeted specific industry based on what groups they meet with and how they meet with those groups and what their affinity is for a certain sales process and what their affinity is for this. And how are you going to best open the door to shake their hands? That targeting exercise, I think, is so, so critical. So how do you dive in with reps and with CEOs and owners to actually help them understand that critical nature of the targeting exercise? Like, is that something that is broadly known across industries that you're working with people, or are you really having to force that on people?
No, I think they have a sense of it. But I think the mentality that is so easy for people to fall into is we just need revenue. We don't care where it comes from. We don't care if the project that we get is ideal for us or not, if we can make money doing it. They don't look at the opportunity costs perhaps of doing that. So there are definitely some exercises that you can run through looking at your existing client base, right? And the profitability of those clients and seeing what do these have in common. And there are some exercises that you can do with opportunities that you win and lose, right? Where do we win? Where do we lose? And really getting that buy-in from the team that here's our target markets. Here's the problems that we're really uniquely aligned to solve for them. And here are the people within these organizations that care about these problems. And I like to take it a step further because I like to have business conversations about things that matter. So if you're working with a specific industry and you can understand where on their financials, what ratios do they look at? What do they care about? And how can you impact their financial metrics at the end of the year? If you can really boil it all down to that, then you can have a great conversation with someone who can tell you yes. If you're trying to sell to every industry, every size, shape, and form, right? You don't still have the bandwidth to get that intimately acquainted with that many industries. I feel like to really be able to position yourself to feel super knowledgeable about what's important to them. So yeah, you get pushback, right? People are like, well, I'm not turning down a deal.
Yeah, no, I that's hard to do. Quite frankly, it's ridiculously hard to do. And I guess it ties to one of the things that I've been on this kick recently, mainly because I've noticed it in myself and the things that I need to do around discipline and accountability. But I think they're two amazing words that actually get used very poorly. So Dave, I'm gonna put this question to you. When you see discipline and accountability, are you finding those to be? Is that more of a problem these days that reps are undisciplined and less accountable? Are there more reps out there that are really good at discipline and accountability, or is this kind of a myth that the generations don't have? There's a big change in generations, and they're just not accountable these days. What do you see out there in market?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective. I know you and I have talked about this at some length before, Paul, as well, that the idea that one generation brings a certain characteristic to it, I think it almost, I don't know the right word, maybe dehumanizes. That might not be that might be a little extreme, but it's putting someone into a box when the reality is accountability, drive, a will to sell and a will to perform and a high motivation. That can be any individual from any background at any age group, and they're going to respond to people who care about them. So as a sales leader, do I really care about my team's success? Am I listening? Like Nicole said, am I finding out what they love to do, what their skill sets are? And I'm going to build a plan to capitalize on what they love to do. And then I'm going to hold them accountable because I care about their success. And I think we often will see people respond in that environment, regardless of what age group or generation or whatever other title we want to put on it. Accountability, if it's just a numbers game, then it really is more like babysitting, right? But accountability can really be coaching and investment and building up your team. And people will respond to that.
Yeah, I think we sat in the same Vistage presentation, and it was fascinating to me in that because they were talking about the front lines, and they had a bunch of different people in different generations speaking about, how they like to interact with their team and how they like to get out there and that type of stuff. And there was some differences. Like the differences were essentially, one likes hierarchical structure, one doesn't, one texts more, one emails more, all of those things. I mean, so there's differences. But one thing that was really interesting when they talked about what motivates them, and what motivates them to do their job well, it got down to the same things. It was like, no, I really like to have a say. I really like to have an impact, and I really like to be able to feed my family. Right. And I like working with people that care about me. And I know we've gotten on a little bit of a tangent, but Nicole, when you're out there in market, what kind of differences do you see? I know you work with a lot of companies. Do you see major differences of sales teams that they have an actual, the sales manager's got their back, is working hard for them, cares about them, is holding coaching calls versus, the distant CEO that's just screaming at his sales team to go sell some stuff?
Gosh, I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to anyways. The people who hire us, if they had a really great sales leader who was doing all those things, they might not need us, right? Like the sales leader plays a super pivotal role and whether or not their teams are successful. And sometimes we've got a really great person in a great role who they've never been taught. Because most of the time what happens is somebody's really great at sales. And so somebody says, you know what, we want people to do what you do. So let's have you lead this team. And honestly, if they were a really highly motivated person, probably had a pretty good figure it out factor, likely didn't really need a lot of accountability conversations, didn't really need to have somebody lay out, here are the things you need to do. They don't know how to have those conversations because then nobody ever had one with them. So, if we do have a good sales leader who's got the right mindset, that servant leader wanting to see the team success, oftentimes if we can just give them a framework, teach them some how to coach, right? Give them some extra tools, they're going to have a lot of success. If not, we're kind of screaming into the ocean, right? Trying to get a sales team to change and be accountable when there's no leader to hold them accountable and to reinforce and coach and develop. It's kind of a little bit of a losing proposition. That sales leader role is super important. So if there's anybody listening out here thinking we need to bring on a sales leader, or we've got a good sales leader, they could use some help, there are some really fundamental things that you're going to want to nail down within your organization so that when you do bring on this sales leader, you're giving them a great platform to be successful from.
Yeah, if I could give you an illustration of that, just yesterday, literally, I was speaking with a sales leader, an executive sales leader from a global organization headquartered in Europe, but we were together in Chicago talking. And, they've had a history of just basically the bullhorn, go sell more, go sell more, go sell more, and they're not seeing the traction they wanted to in their organization. But we were talking about the leaders they have in place, those sales management level. I feel like they're really good people and they don't know why they're not getting traction. And we did exactly what Nicole just talked about. It's about systems and processes. If you have good people, they need a track to run on. They need to have some systems, some processes, could be resources like Membrain, of course, and all the things you make available to clients to help really good people who really care about their sales folks. Because the truth is, most of the time, overwhelming majority of the time, that's what we find. If someone took a sales leadership role, I suppose there's a small percentage that were really selfish about why they took it. But the overwhelming majority, they're there because they want to help other people. They want to develop their teams. They just need some systems, some processes, and some resources to help them figure out how to do that.
I was with another sales coach as well as a sales exec that just got promoted into management last night. It was fun. We were having a cigar. And the newly crowned sales manager was talking to the sales coach. He's like, yeah, I just took this management role. And the sales coach says, why'd you do that? Well, I thought it was a good upward mobility and, that gave a couple other stuff. Good salary, upward mobility. I like people. It was really funny, the response. He goes, that's great. What training did you get? Well, they just kind of put me in. It's like, give me a call when you need some help. I mean, because it was a really evidence of that type of discussion. I do think there's a kind of a reawakening is the wrong term, but it starting to, when I talk to people, more of an understanding of that sales management layer and more of an understanding of coaching as a critical element of that and bringing people along and not just metrics, moving away from the assembly line of sales and moving more towards, investing somebody that I need to invest in for the next 3 to 5 to 7 years. And I see that coming back a little bit. Is that something that you all see in market, or am I just being really optimistic?
No, well, you're an optimistic person. That's one of the reasons I love you, Paul. But it is true, though, where I'm seeing that more. I had one of these quality, productive conversations you were talking about last week with an organization. And when we went through some of these challenges, this was his answer to me at the end. I didn't know I needed this much investment in my sales leader. Right, I'm meeting with the president, owner of a company, smaller company, who was just thinking we needed to get coaching for our sales people. But as the conversation went on, his exact words were, I didn't know how much I needed to invest in my sales leader to help him be productive. Once his eyes were open, he was ready to invest. He wanted to do this because he sees the impact to the team. I think the importance is more and more evident, but sometimes we have to put it in front of them to see it.
Yep. I think it's a change back. I feel a change back instead of the strict financial model of it. I think people are starting to recognize that there's both, but that's just me preaching. We are at time, actually. I can't believe this has gone this fast, but we're at time. So I'm going to ask you both one last question, if you could, just from your perspective, where you're sitting, both working with frontline, account executives, frontline sales managers, CEOs, and also selling yourself. What is one thing that you could tell people that are on the front lines that will help them today?
Just one, huh?
Just one. You only get to pick one.
Well, there's so many, but the one thing, especially when we're thinking about new business development or really anything in sales, is always be thinking about how to maximize your return on time. Because that's the one thing in selling that you never get back. If you have a monthly quota and you waste a day, you're not getting that back. So, and how do you do that? You just get real clear on who your best clients and customers and prospects are. And you just ruthlessly disqualify everything that's outside of that. And you focus your time on those winnable deals, those winning relationships that are going to get you what you need to get.
That's great advice. Great advice. What about yourself, David?
Yeah, good answer, Nicole. There's a lot of things we could focus on, but I guess one thing that has jumped out to me at SalesStar, we have a core value, better never stops. And that's what I would say to folks. If they really love what they're doing and want to keep, then better never stops. Find ways to get better. Get people to build into your life that's going to get you to be better. Find systems. Have fun, but better never stops. You've never arrived. Keep going.
I love it. Well, thank you, David. Thank you, Nicole. It's been an absolute pleasure. As any longtime listener of the program knows, my is just to get out there and to keep shining bright, because you got this. It's positive, complete persistence, shining bright, making it happen. And I think if you combine that, Nicole, with yours, you got to have it focused on the right team, on the right people, the winning relationships. David, if we're talking about better never stops, that's continual improvement, and then get out there, be persistent, shine bright. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, all of you that invested this past half hour with us, learning, getting better, diving in. I really appreciate it. From the art and science of complex sales, from both Nicole, David, myself, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, Happy Holidays, however you want to say it, and have an absolutely amazing, amazing day. Hey, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Art and Science of Complex Sales. I hope today's conversation provided you with valuable insights and practical ideas to help you and your team elevate the profession and succeed in today's complex world. This podcast is brought to you by Membrain.com. Membrain is a B2B growth platform for CEOs, sales leaders, and sales executives who are committed to sustainable growth and change. If you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor, like, subscribe, share it with your network. Your support really helps us bring more valuable insights from the best in the business straight to you. Also, check us out at Membrain.com. We're more than a technology. Membrain equips your teams with the expert coaches and trainers, amazing sales methodologies, process, people, and tools to continually improve and coach results. More than a CRM. It's a network, and it's designed to help your team execute with confidence, smash goals, and overall up your sales game. So we'll see you next time for another episode of The Art and Science of Complex Sales. And until then, as always, keep shining bright.